Hey, what's up, Unbroken Nation? In that, one of the things that I'm curious about is, there are people who right now they're starting to maybe and even just listening to this for the first time have this moment of clarity and think, oh wow, maybe there is some symbiosis between this experience in childhood and this person I'm in a relationship with. How do it was for me, like, having a moment of recognition about this was kinda like literally an epiphany. It was like a holy shit moment. But how can somebody know was that the same for you? I'm trying to, like, draw a path for people
Mm.
to create a foundational understanding of being able to recognize whether or not they may be in a similar situation as what we used to be in.
Yeah, totally. Well, for those starting off who might just be learning about this for the first time, there's always one tip that I find very helpful to share with folks. And it's to look at the relationship you're currently in or look at past relationships and to actually identify how is it that the other person makes me feel, right? How do I actually feel when I'm around this person? And I've gotten a range of different answers of I feel unimportant to all these people I date. I never feel like I get enough attention. Um, I never feel like I'm enough, or I feel like I'm too much. I feel like I can't commit to them, right? There's always some common denominator of the way that you actually feel in that relationship. And then to tie that feeling with someone from your past who also made you feel the same way. And I can almost guarantee you there's going to be a clear connection that comes up for you. That it's probably mom or dad or someone who raised you or someone from your past that was a very important relationship for you. Yeah.
And when you're in that, I think that can be super unsettling for people.
Yeah.
Right, and I think predominantly if it's the first time you've come to that realization and you're like eh for me, I was like, "Oh my god, this is, like, the worst moment of my life," right? Because 'Cause they're like, "What is happening right now?" And you kinda actually kinda realize, like, you're also playing a factor and a role in that, and I think that there's a level of reconciliation that has to happen. And so, one of the things that you mentioned is you're like, all right, I'm in this place. I'm super successful. I'm a high performer. And I'm going to make this personal statement. I resonate with that tremendously because that's
Mm.
where I was. Super successful, high performer, relationships, disaster.
Yeah. You got it.
Right. And I'm like, same as you, hopeless romantic, seeking, hoping, praying somebody be that fix that thing to fill my cup. How do you like reconcile the fact that like here I am super successful, but this one thing that maybe probably should matter more is a complete wreck?
Yeah. Oh gosh. I'm getting flashbacks to years ago. But I will tell you something about this. One thing I think it's really important to mention is being good at relationships. It's not this, elusive, random thing that only happens to lucky people. And I think that when we grow up with all of these very dysfunctional examples, it's really easy to believe that, right? It's easy to believe these these are false narratives that, there's so few good people out there, or there's no one out there for me. And we kind of get stuck in these narratives, and it can make relationships feel very random. And like it's not possible for you, but it's just a skill like everything else. Like if you're an entrepreneur, you didn't just build a business by like guesswork, right? Like you actually had to implement skills and pull it together. But becoming securely attached is also a skill too. These are things that we can actually learn when it comes to regulating your triggers in relationships, managing the connection, finding the right people. But you know what, Michael? I think what I'll say to that is taking responsibility in your choices in these relationships is probably the first step. I mean, I know you know this, but to those people listening,
Hey, Unbroken Nation, we'll be right back to the show
But I wanted to let you know that you can grab a copy of my first book, Think Unbroken: Understanding and Overcoming Childhood Trauma, for free. If you go to book.thinkunbroken.com, you can download the PDF ebook version of the book and get everything that I know about the baseline of healing trauma for free, downloaded to your email right now. Just go to book.thinkunbroken.com to download your copy of Think Unbroken: Understanding and Overcoming Childhood Trauma for a PDF for your phone. Again, that is book.thinkunbroken.com.
I mean, I was at a point where I was just blaming everyone else, right? I was thinking, well, this guy sucks, that person sucks, right? And I was always putting the blame on them, like they were the toxic ones, not me, not me. I'm over here, crushing it. I'm a boss babe, right? And I was avoiding personal responsibility. But the fact was, there was only one common denominator in all these relationships. It was me, right? Like I was choosing to go on these dates with people. I was the one choosing to stay for 12 freaking months with someone that didn't want to call me his girlfriend. At that point, I couldn't even blame him anymore. It was just, I was the one that was allowing it to happen. And damn, that gutted me, right? To realize that, wow, maybe I have a part to play in this as well. And I saw a smile on your face. Maybe you felt that way before too. So I think taking radical responsibility for your journey and what you want and what you truly deserve in relationships has to come first before we're even ready to talk about the strategic and the healing piece.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm smiling because I'm like, yeah, take fucking responsibility for your life.
Yeah.
And it's hard, right? Because it's so much of the causation and correlation where you find yourself effectively building a life that you had already once lived
Mhm.
because it's comfortable, right? I
Right.
mean, what's more comfortable than known experiences, right? And until you're willing to face the other side of that, and the discomfort in this context is like empathy and compassion and grace and love and acceptance and being
Mhm.
claimed, right? Like, what's more scary than that? I've never had that before, so I'm going to shy away from it. But even in that moment of like, for lack of a better term, this coming to Jesus experience where you're like, oh shit, wait a second, this is on me.
Right.
I feel that one of two things typically happens. One being people go, all right, well, this is just acceptance. This is what I deserve. This is what I'll continue to have. Sans a rock bottom, potentially, right? And the other being like, I'm gonna destroy myself. I deserve this. I'm a piece of
Mhm.
shit. How do you step through that space?
Oh, that's such a good nuanced question. I've never heard anyone ask it quite like that before. Because you're totally right. I think, as the high achiever, we're so good at polarizing things and either going this way or the other way, right? So I really believe it's about finding that middle balance. I mean, the reason intimate relationships are so hard for, people like me is we feel safe in our professional life because that's where we've established our authority, but we don't feel safe with this relationship stuff because it's totally new to us. But when it comes to taking responsibility and not having it go, go through this downward spiral. Uh, Now, one half, I think it's really important to be in a community or work with someone that can show you what it's like on the other side. Because how do you, if I've never seen what a healthy relationship looks like, I have no point of reference to even get there. So, whether it's therapy or working with a coach or even reading a book, I think having some sort of external guidance is always very helpful when you're going somewhere that you've never been to before. But combining that radical responsibility with compassion and self compassion, I think is the sweet spot. So it's not only this, oh, it's all my fault, right? Like I made all these choices, like I'm the toxic one. But we have to pair that with the understanding of why we have made those choices. I wasn't a bad person for choosing these people. It was because that's all I've ever known. I didn't know any better. I thought I was dating people that on paper would have been good matches for me, but I was not in connection with my body. I didn't know what my type should be based on my attachment style, right? And so I was just repeating wounds. And so when we do make mistakes, I think it's super important to take responsibility for our own actions, but also pair that with that unconditional self-compassion as well, so that we're not just beating ourselves up.